Entrepreneurs aren't born, they're brewed. You are now listening to the Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney. Let's grow!
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Adam McChesney, and I want to thank you for being here. Today, unfortunately, we're not live from Half Coast Studios, but actually at my house. Just got back from a long trip to Nicaragua and came back with COVID. So doing it and making it happen from the house here today in the office. But as always, thank you to Half Coast for their amazing setup and sponsoring the show. If you are looking to start your podcast or take your current one to the next level, then you definitely need to check these guys out. Contact them today for a free consultation. And if you're listening, please be sure to subscribe to the show and leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. We would love for you to share this on social media by tagging me. In this way, we can get this incredible content out to more people. Today's guest is a fellow member of the Apex community, which many of our guests are have been on. He is one of the first people that I actually met at my first Apex meetup back in October of 2020. And since meeting him, he has become a international best-selling author, Apex executive coach, and opened up an insurance training academy. My guest today is Brian McKittrick. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to hop on here with you today. Always great to connect with people in the Apex community. But remember back to my first Apex event in October 2020, you were one of the first people that ever said hey to me. And I remember, because I still have it here at the house, is the cup with my name on it. I'm like, man, just an amazing, person, but someone that always goes out of their way to help others. And, things like saying hi to me when I knew no one, a gesture of obviously getting the guest list before that event and taking care of people with cups. I just thought that was amazing, man. So I always thankful for that, but really excited to have you on here today.
Cool. Absolutely. Yeah. The entrepreneur group was a fun group. I think the next month, me and Mike Claudio both upgraded to the executive group. But I remember the entrepreneur group when I was in there. That's a fun group. Actually, Stuman says that's his favorite level of the Apex community, because those are the ones that just, kind of starting and building their own thing before they go to, having a full staff and everything. So yeah, that was a fun meeting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And excited to have you on here today to talk about your entrepreneurial journey. So just for our guests, those that have either listened before or listening for the first time, we like to compare the entrepreneurial journey to that of the beer brewing process within, what they've overcame and kind of their story. So Brian, to kind of start us out here and talk about some of the history and things like that, give us an idea of where you're at right now and kind of what you do and what you're involved with, and then we'll work our way back from there.
Sure. Yeah. I am. So I've got an insurance marketing, platform called Insurance of Texas. So that's primarily where I get my organic reach through social media, and primarily heavy on Facebook groups, networking groups. But I am a divisional leader within an agency. And that agency is called Health Guys. We're set up nationwide, 80 agents. And we offer, health insurance, primarily life and Medicare for the entire country. So I really kind of, set myself up to be really an educator within the insurance space. So not only as a team leader, I wrote a sales book last year called It Ain't Rocket Surgery, and I've worked in the insurance masterminds, insurance groups to be an education in that space.
No, that's awesome. And I know I've seen, all the different things that you have going on. For a lot of our guests, it's always trying to understand where they need to be spending their time. And I would say you definitely are one of the people that I look up to when it comes to time management and juggling projects and things like that. So I think before we kind of get into anything else,
sure,
talk to us about how you're able to juggle all of those different things and obviously still have time for things outside of that work environment as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working to continually refine my schedule and my day. So I added a personal mentor at the beginning of the year. Within the Apex community, we talk a lot about, kind of a full scope, but it is a business first community. Like a lot of masterminds are business first. So, at the end of last year, I had gone through a year being coached by an Apex executive coach and then became a coach myself. But I felt this kind of gap on the personal space. So I went and at one of our meetings in January, when a man that spoke with us, I just kind of felt some kind of a grab between us. And I asked him, if he does one-on-one stuff. So about 2 or 3 weeks talking back and forth, he agreed to start working with me. But in that approach there, I really sought to refine my personal goals, things like, faith, family, really dialing in on my fitness. I have a personal trainer, another Apex member, Mark Zalmanoff, but my personal mentor is a former NFL player. So he's able to speak to some of the fitness pieces as well. So I really took a hard look at my schedule and set my day up early. Currently, I'm reading Ed Milet's book, and chapter 4 he talks about time management. I just finished that this morning. And ironically enough, he's talking about, really refining your day. He actually talks about it in three days. So take your day and divide it into 3 separate increments. And that's exactly what I've already been working on. So it helps to kind of, continually refine that piece and get more dialed into, okay, from 5 to 10 a.m., that's the heavy personal stuff where you hit the gym early in the morning. You're making sure you're reading, whatever faith stuff, the Bible or whatever faith you have, getting your proper fitness, proper nutrition to start the day. My middle of the day, 10 to 5 before I leave the office, is my work time. And ideally, I get all of that done. That way, when I get home at 6, I'm not bleeding office requirements, things that should have been done earlier in the day for business.
I love that. That's definitely a great setup you have going on. And it's awesome to hear that, obviously you have the self-awareness and recognition to be like, hey, there is still an area to improve because, you're operating at a very high level, but we're kind of refining and retuning to make sure that you're, doing what you need to be doing and still having time for everything else.
Yeah. And I think another part is, I don't see a separation in my days I have certain things that I have reoccurring every week. Like my mentor call is every Wednesday at noon. I've got monthly calls with other people, but I don't sit there and say, well, Monday's all insurance, Tuesday's all coaching. I don't do that. My schedule is 10 to 4 primarily. I'm available for, stuff weekends here and there or late night stuff if it's an appointment that I have to make. But I don't go, well, it's Tuesday and you want to have a call with me, but I do my coaching on Thursday. I don't do that. So it's literally every hour. I schedule as much as I can as on the hour if possible, but that hour is dedicated to that one appointment. If I don't have an appointment, I do a task in that hour. So I had a conversation with a lead vendor at 11 and we're on the call at 12. At 1:30, I'll have a client call. So, I don't sit there and go, well, I can't talk to you today, Mr. Johnson, because I only sell insurance on Wednesdays. So I think it's hard to do that. I think people start to get some frustrations.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you kind of going into that process as well. Definitely makes a lot of sense. So the next aspect that we'd like to talk about is key ingredients. So within great beers are made from great ingredients. What are 3 things that have made you successful in your entrepreneurial journey thus far?
I think the support of family would be the first one. So I was in the retail space for about 12 years, retail management. I actually first licensed in insurance in 2005, but I only did it kind of part-time, if you will, until 2015. So I was actually managing retail stores. And, my wife and I started dating in 2008. We got married in 2010. And, we had, retail roles. We had salary, whatever. It was very easy going in terms of we knew what money was going to come in routinely. Now it's hard to scale that though. So when I sought to get out of retail in 2015, because of the toll it was taking from an hourly standpoint on my family, it was making sure my wife was on board, Then we started our own LLC in 2017 for tax purposes with the insurance money. So that was one part, having her on board. My father-in-law was a great advisor and support when I first got going. So family, I think, is involving family would be the basis of it. My son is very interested in what we do. He might be the first kid ever who really does want to be an insurance agent. usually if you're in sales, like, insurance, real estate, car sales, you probably wanted to be something else growing up. For me, it was a baseball player or even a ninja. Some guys want to be in the army, but if you're a salesperson, it's very likely you wanted to be something different. It didn't work out. But that was the number one for me. And I've always had good people advising. The second one would be like a mentorship. I had people in my life that were good advisors in the retail world. But for the first couple of years in insurance, I had people that I looked up to and people that were in the agency that was support there. That was good, but I wasn't involved in any kind of mentorship coaching perspective. So when I got into the Apex coaching program in 2020, it was a good experience to get into that realm. Since then, I make sure to have advisors in my world. So I have a personal mentor. I have a marketing coach that I work with once a week. I have people in the business sector. So I've got a business, specifically insurance is where he's in. We talk once a month. I just got off a phone call yesterday with a pastor, and he and I will start talking once a month. So then I got the spiritual side, someone who's older than me. My personal mentor is also very spiritual, but we're more the same age. So we're more like brothers. So I've got, a brotherhood type thing within business and personal. And I have those other advisors in the other parts, a personal trainer for fitness, spiritual advisor, that kind of thing. So those are two big ones: family involvement, mentorship. And then other than that is just learning, continually to be a learner. I think you and I, we talked about this when you first started at the beginning of the year. You're reading a book a week, and so am I. I think I'm going to down tune that next year. I think probably 36 books a year versus 52 might be a little better because we can digest more. But at the same time, it's just having that good input.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. And I would agree with you there. 36 is probably more the ideal realm after doing it myself and kind of being able to digest. But I love how you talk about that family aspect in combining that with the mentorship and the continuous learning aspect. I think people think once they get to a certain level or they've reached a certain tier of dollars in their business or that they're taking home, that they're kind of set. But as entrepreneurs, we always are trying to push the envelope. We're always trying to get to that next level. And if you try to stay doing a lot of the same things that you're doing right now, it's not going to work out. Right. So I love that. I love that continuous learning aspect for sure. Yeah.
You bring in input of, you see it's cool to see a speaker like a $1 Million Mastermind, the big event that Stu puts on once a year. That was the first time I'd seen Ed Milet. So reading his book right after shortly after was a really cool aspect. But it's great to get excited by see a speaker, but continue to follow up on what you heard and your notes from seeing those things is another aspect of it that helps for learning.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. So the next aspect that we're going to talk about today is kind of the brewing process. So within great beer, it obviously doesn't happen overnight. Talk to us about some of the ups and downs of your journey thus far and what you've been able to take away from it.
So I think I've been blessed from the standpoint of my journey is a consistent uptick. I didn't feel in the insurance world a big drop off in 2020, but I didn't really lose clientele per se. We've had just changeovers in the industry and things that happen, but for me personally, just because I've had sought people to speak into my life and learn from them and put those things in place, that's helped be the uptick. So when you're coached by somebody, someone who's being coached is someone who is good at being coached, I should say, is good at taking action on what they've learned. Sometimes it's a direct question like, hey, like I asked the pastor yesterday about a Bible study plan. He was very directive. Well, here's what you need to do. That's consultative type coaching. Sometimes it's just to get you to think differently and open up your mind to seeing something that you're not already seeing. But I have been blessed in the terms of I've built my business and it's grown. I would think also on the uptick with people when they think they want to scale, is they think they need to start looking at other ventures to scale, when realistically, I think you should first start trying to bolt on to the service that you already offer. So like, I mean, being in insurance, I can go from insurance sales to recruiting, to generating leads, to insurance education, and still live in that same umbrella and still be known for insurance, as opposed to the guy who one day he's selling houses, 6 months later, he also is, offering software solutions. Another 6 months later, all of a sudden he's offering lending. It's like, none of this makes any sense. It's not connecting the dots.
No, that's great advice. I like how you talk about kind of staying in your realm or your zone of genius, if you will, because a lot of times, like you said, people will be successful in one area. And I've been guilty of this in the past, where I'm like, oh, okay, well, now I can take something that I know from this and then go start something else. And it's not always a direct correlation, and you get sidetracked, and it can cause a whole slew of issues. So really focusing on what you know best and what you can scale from there is really a great way to go. So I think that's great. A great piece of advice.
Yeah.
So now we're going to go into kind of the fermentation and conditioning process throughout the entrepreneur. So that's where within beer, it's the part of the process where you wait to see the final result of what a beer might taste like and figure out what needs to be changed in order to get better. Mm-hmm. So what is the biggest lesson that you've learned in entrepreneurship that you would share with an entrepreneur looking to save years worth of mistakes?
So, I think the one that sticks out the most is there's a book by a guy named Gary Keller called The One Thing. And Pastor Keith Craft also talks about this. Let me pull my thing out here. I'll show you. This is an exercise that I did with through his book, but also Gary Keller mentions it in his. So the idea of the one thing is your talent focus that would make the most difference. So Gary Keller talks about what's the one thing that you could be. So he calls it a domino effect. So if you were to stack dominoes but every domino was 50%, got 50% bigger as you went up, you literally could stack all these dominoes together, and the first domino-sized domino could actually have the power to knock over the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one, even to something as tall as Mount Everest. Like it literally could just have that same power. So what you're doing now has a compound effect later on. So what he talks about is you set these goals. You have 10-year goals, 5-year goals, even an annual goal, but take that goal down to as something as short as today, or even by the hour. What's the one thing that I can do at this moment that will make an impact later on? So how does appearing on a podcast, either my own, having my own podcast or appearing on a podcast like yours, help one of my goals? Well, one of my goals is to be an educator within insurance. So you have listeners in your, that listen to your show that are in a vast array of industries. One of them could be insurance, and that can make a connection that might start something later on. So what's one thing that you can be doing now every hour that's going to attack one of your goals? Now, the cool thing is that also helps you to focus on something that you would not be doing. Like we all see these opportunities that come across Facebook pages or our friends or something like that. It's like, okay, like I'm very, I like the idea of, I see a lot of people making money in real estate, but I'm not going to stop what I'm doing to learn to go flip houses because it doesn't fall within my channel. But if I want to make money in real estate, I might just go, okay, I have friends who have syndicate funds and just invest in those funds and earn it passively. So that's another thing that people can get confused of. They see these shiny objects called shiny object syndrome. And they're like, okay, I want to do this. And I want to do this with Forex and crypto and all these things. It doesn't really fall within your wheelhouse. So reading that book, The One Thing by Gary Keller, really helped fall in line. Keith Craft's book, Your Divine Fingerprint, he talks about genius. I've always had the firm belief that there's something that each person in the world can do very, very well. Like they have a talent at something. You might, and you very well could be using your talent. Maybe you're not. We see people in like professional sports, they are 100% using their talent, but maybe some barista at Starbucks is an incredible artist. We don't know because he's not using that talent yet. But Keith has an exercise and he talks about genius, what's something that you do incredibly well, a superpower, something that you do very well, competency, you're doing it okay, but can get better, a weakness, which is something that's hurting you, but you can fix it. And then what I added one more called your vulnerability, your back door. What's your potential for loss? So for me, I think my genius is educating others, which is ironic because I didn't go to college and I was not a great high school student either. But I think I've done a great job of educating people. When I wrote my book, it's sales written from an educational standpoint. It's designed to be fun. My superpower, what I'm good at, I think I'm good at simplifying concepts for other people to understand it, really boiling things down to the very, very simple. The two things that I'm working on from a competency is be a better presenter and a better speaker. My weakness, if you will, that I need to make sure I can get up to at least to an adequate stage is discipline. I don't think I'm naturally a very disciplined person, but what I've done to fix that is have mentors and accountability people that I know that they're watching over me. For instance, I know if I don't mark my workout in the morning, my trainer, Mark Zalmanoff, will be like, hey, I didn't get at least for the week, he'll check in and be like, hey, how are things going? You didn't work out on Tuesday. You didn't do this on Thursday. So I know I got that accountability. I have an accountability partner. My mentor is not going to let me, do something out of integrity or out of character that doesn't fall in line with what we're doing. So that's a way for me to shore that up.
Yeah, that's a great exercise. And I also love how you tied back some of the, the areas of opportunity, I like to call them, / weaknesses, and what you're doing to be able to get you to make that an adequate feature in your life or an adequate skill set by tying it back to those mentors and tying it back to a personal trainer and things like that. So I think that's amazing. The last piece that we'll talk about here is the distribution within the beer brewing process. So that's obviously taking the beer to market and selling it. So you have some amazing projects and things that you're working on right now. But talk to us about what's next for Brian in the coming years and what you're going to be focused on moving forward.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So we have an education from licensing perspective. I would like to expand that to be sales training. The only downside is the states do not allow, which is the most ironic thing. So education in the insurance space, where they're required for continuing education, but it's only basic information. Which is ironic because the biggest gap, in my opinion, is good service and good sales skills, but you can't have education. So it would be a paid service for that. So that's an expansion area we want to do. And then for me to be involved in more mastermind and be on more stages. So, we'll continue to grow as an agency and put people more in there. And I want to at least be involved somewhere, probably once a month. Like I spoke in June at a mastermind in Vegas. A friend of mine, he had me come in, and that was a very intensive, small group, high ticket mastermind piece for insurance agents. And then in late July, I speak with the 8% Nation, which is the largest insurance group in the nation, at the one in Dallas. I'm teaching there at that. So that's a capacity I would like to do more, get on more stages. It's not just insurance specifically, but anybody commission sales is sales. Anybody commission sales could benefit from that. So that's my my growth trajectory, if you will. I'm also, I write for Forbes, I write for Entrepreneur, and we'll be adding more publications. As of this recording today, I hit Entrepreneur. That came out today.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to kind of see where you take off in terms of getting on more stages, getting in front of more people, sharing your story, education, and especially stuff around sales. I think a lot of people can utilize that stuff. Excited to see you have that impact. And lastly, man, just really appreciate you taking some time to come on the episode today. Any last pieces of advice that you'd like to leave with our audience in terms of things that they might be able to take home?
Yeah, I think distraction is what kills people the most. I think you keep the main thing until you can replace the main thing with something else. It was a bit of faith for me to jump into leaving retail, having a salary, and jumping into commission insurance. But I hit the ground running and generated a 6-figure income in the first year because I had to replace that amount of money that we were earning on the retail side. But don't let distraction is the thing that pulls people away the most. So you can allocate, you can't get caught up on balance. There's no way that you're going to be able to spend exactly 8 hours with family because you spend 8 hours at work. So you have to find a way to be intentional, but what pulls away from intentionality is distraction.
No, that's a great last piece of advice to leave our audience with. I definitely appreciate that. Yeah. Appreciate everything that you shared on this episode today. Where can people find you, whether it's social media, a website link, things like that? We'll put that in the show notes for you.
Yeah, thank you. So social media, it's Brian with an I. McKittrick is spelled M as in Michael, Kittrick. I have a website of the same name, brianmckittrick.com. It has links to, if you want to know about insurance stuff, my book, as well as connecting on social media.
Awesome. Well, we'll have that in the show notes for our guests today. Brian, thanks for coming on.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And I want to thank you again for tuning into the podcast. To our guests, please be sure to subscribe, download, and share our content. Leaving a 5-star review goes a long way. And thank you, as always, to Half Coast Studios. If you're here in St. Louis and looking to start your podcast, then you seriously need to come check out what they have going on. We'll see you all next week. And remember, entrepreneurs aren't born, they are brewed.
I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs aren't born, they're brewed. Thank you for listening to Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney. Let's